Sebastian Balfour, 59 Wallingford Avenue, W106PZ.
Grainne Palmer, 59 Wallingford Avenue, W106PZ.
And if you could please look at page 1393 and confirm that the submission that you've put in is true to the best of your knowledge and understanding, and do you wish to stand as your evidence for this commission?
I do.
I want to ask you first about your use of Hammersmith Hospital. In the past, when did you last use A&E services there?
This was in 1996, when I was admitted for an operation to the heart operation.
And what was your experience then of travel times, getting there, and by what mode?
It was very, very good experience. It's very accessible.
And what mode of transport was it?
I could use bus, I could walk from my residence, and car.
And in terms of waiting times at that stage?
At that stage, there were reasonable waiting times, yes.
Can you put a figure on reasonable waiting time?
Right, very, very difficult to remember. It's a long time ago, but I could say that it was usually, certainly within 2 hours.
And quality and standard of care received?
Very high indeed.
Now, moving on to post the closure in September 2014, you described attending at the urgent care centre at Hammersmith Hospital. Can you help the Commission by explaining what happened?
Well, we understood that there was no A&E service. We attended the urgent care centre because I was undergoing considerable pain, and I was seen there by a GP who, like my own GP, failed to diagnose what the problem was.
Pause there a moment.
Yes.
Are you aware, and you may not know, were there any consultants available, or was it simply GPs at that stage?
There was just that GP available.
Thank you. Continue.
Yeah. And it was only a week later, when I was under continued considerable pain, that I went to Chelsea and Westminster A&E, where they diagnosed my condition.
Pause there a moment.
Yeah.
So you went to UCC, failed to diagnose. Where were you sent, if anywhere, from UCC?
Nowhere.
What was if you say a failure of a diagnosis? Was it simply a non-diagnosis?
Well, it was diagnosed. Shall I actually give the diagnosis? I'm quite happy to make this public. Diagnosed as IBS, when in fact it turned out to be diverticulitis.
And then explain to us, please, how you came to go to A&E and how you knew on that occasion to go to A&E.
Well, the pain was unbearable, and so, not having had a diagnosis that explained the condition, in my opinion, I went to A&E in Chelsea and Westminster.
And why was it that you went to Chelsea and Westminster?
Because that was the closest, as far as I could tell, the closest A&E that was open.
And how were you able to get there? By what form of transport?
By car, driven by my wife.
And how long were you waiting once you got to Chelsea and Westminster?
That is difficult to remember the exact time, but it was several hours, yes.
I don't know, perhaps if you're...
Yes, I think it was. Sorry, I'll press that. Okay. Yes, it was definitely several hours, but once he had been.
Oh, I turned this off.
Sorry.
Yes, it was several hours we had to wait.
And what were you told, if anything, about the impact of the delay from having been seen at the UCC to having been seen at A&E?
Well, I think it's clear that, I think you need to turn yours off, yes.
Sorry.
Right. I think it was clear that this diagnosis should have taken place a long time before, and that a referral to a consultant should have taken place at least a year earlier.
If you were in a similar situation now and were unsure about the gravity of your condition, where would you go?
I would go to Chelsea and Westminster.
Would you consider using an urgent care centre?
It would depend very much on my own judgment. In a sense, we have to take ownership of our condition and find out as much as possible about it. And this is what I attempted to do. In any case, on the basis of having gone for over a year with periodic pains of considerable intensity, I had actually insisted with my GP that I should be referred, but it was only the referral will take a while, obviously, to go through the administrative procedures. But it was a week later that the condition was so bad that I decided to go into A&E, and it was there in A&E they immediately decided to hospitalize me and went through all the tests where they determined that this was a case of diverticulitis that needed urgent attention.
I don't know if you can assist. Were you able to, or did you have provide any feedback or have further discussions with the urgent care centre about the failure diagnosis?
Not the urgent care centre, certainly with my GP, yes.
And what was the GP's response, if any?
Well, the GP was very glad that this matter had been cleared up. I certainly didn't go with any grievance to him. It's not his job to diagnose something as complicated as diverticulitis.
So in a nutshell, what do you want to say to the Commission about the closure of the Hammersmith Hospital accident and emergency room?
Well, I hope my case might reinforce the argument for retaining and restoring local A&E units. Because I welcome the extension of urgent care units and the extension of GP hours, but I don't think these are sufficient to diagnose cases like my own, as I tried to make clear. And I think there are two problems with the present situation. One is the question of capacity, that has already been discussed here, and the other is the question of access. I find it very hard to believe that the 5 remaining A&E units will be able to deal with the number of patients, even though these are filtered out by urgent care centres and GPs. The numbers are going to increase in an extraordinary rate. Access is another problem as well. I have been, for a broken bone, I have been to St Mary's, Paddington, and getting there has been extremely difficult. And this was with a broken limb, extremely difficult. I can imagine now with the closure of the local A&E units that access will be extremely difficult. The volume of traffic will grow exponentially, and the problem of parking, well, it's not possible to park there. Very, very difficult.
So
as it stood before the closure of the local A&E units.
Do you regard St Mary's as a hospital, therefore, that can or cannot provide you with emergency services?
Well, I can't be so categorical as that. I'm just saying that it will be extraordinarily difficult for St Mary's, Paddington to cope with the volume that will be the result, the volume of traffic that will result from the closure of local A&E units.
Now, you also detail in your email an incident involving your neighbour. Now, obviously, of course, you're repeating what's been said to you, but I wonder if you can give us some details of that, if you think they are pertinent to the Commission.
Would you like to take over that?
Yes, okay. Right, I'm not obliged to give the neighbour's name, am I? It was about 3 weeks ago. A neighbour had what he thought was a suspected blood clot near his groin, and he went to St Mary's and he waited for between 4 and 6 hours, is that right? And the conditions there were so bad, he was really worried for his health because he was parked right next to a woman lying on a trolley, coughing and vomiting and screaming, and without any protection for her coughing, and he felt he might pick up something, and he was so upset he actually went home and didn't see any medical advisor for another 2 days.
And are you aware where he went afterwards? Did he go back to St Mary's, do you know?
I don't know.
Is there anything else you can help us with, or is that's the scope of what you know about that incident?
That's all I know. I mean, he's okay, he's been attended to now, and I think it's all under control. But that kind of delay, you know, when people go somewhere and then actually walk out because they feel that their health is in more danger by staying than going, is ridiculous. And between 4 and 6 hours, actually I think it was 6 hours he said, so no good.
And finally, what I'd like to ask you about is this. From your perspective, what do you say should happen in terms of the acute care, the A&E in the area?
I do feel that it's very important for us where we live, which is in North Kensington, just north of Latimer Road Station, to be able to have an A&E department in Hammersmith Hospital. And I think some of the points I heard earlier about the space there to acquire land, parking is okay there, we're both able to walk, there's a bus service. It's very accessible for people living in our area.
Wait there, please, there may be some questions from the Commission.
Yes, thank you very much, both of you. I have a question which you may feel you're not equipped to answer, so please say so. But I feel since you come straight after the last witness and you were here hearing what he had to say, how do you say we as a board, if we can be regarded as that, but anyway, as an inquiry, should be marrying the standards which have now been set, apparently for the first time, which involve on-site consultants and radiology, possibly to the extent of intervention, which means the only way they can provide it is reduced sites. How do we marry that with your needs? I think if you follow the question anyway, do you have some observations about this?
I mean, I sympathise with the arguments he was putting forward about the need to concentrate skills and specialisms. But it is not as if there is no alternative. We should be able to provide those skills and those specialisms in all A&E units, the ones, including the ones that were closed. I don't think closing those has made the situation any better. Of course, this involves greater resources to be put in the NHS. And I think this is an argument. Why does the NHS have to suffer these cuts? This is central to all our lives and our families here. There should be more resources put in the NHS, and the A&Es should be reinstated. We should have local A&Es because in the scenario that the previous witness was putting forward, the stress on the capacity and access to the new remaining A&Es, it doesn't seem to me to have been studied very thoroughly. Anybody who's gone to St Mary's Paddington will be aware of the difficulty of getting to it. Now, where there is urgency, where somebody is dying, where there are broken limbs, then it should be much better to have closer local A&E hospitals, rather A&E units, rather than one which is going to be overcrowded and where the traffic is going to be enormous.
Yes,
I hope that answers your point. I'm really saying there should be increased resources.
Yes, which was my supplementary question to him. But his answer was it's not sensible. Does it appear to be that it's not sensible for clinical reasons or not sensible for economic reasons?
I think it was for economic reasons. That's what I had understood. The prevailing policy of cutting services, of reducing expenditure, this is the framework in which that sort of argument is put forward, and I don't accept that argument or that framework.
Yes, questions? No? No? Oh, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.